We have a big comic this week. We have Dark Knight's Death Metal issue 1, Scott Snyder writing with Greg Capullo on the art, or Greg Capullo, as I've written in my notes for some reason. So
they all did have fun nicknames again on the credits page.
Again, did this last time? I don't remember this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
I don't remember what the nicknames were, but I remember they had them.
I feel like they changed every issue.
Yeah, they did.
Oh.
So
yeah.
Let's see.
My memory just doesn't go back that
I appreciate that they extended it to every member of the credits page. Yeah, all the variant covers, all the editors, the cartographer, because they hired a cartographer for their map. Everything.
They did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was Death Metal and Anti-Crisis Part 1. It all matters. Which I was going, you guys, here we go. By Scott, hallowed be thy name, Snyder, and Greg Painkiller Capullo. Painkiller's got to be the drink, right, Connor? Like
no, Capullo, almost certainly.
Yeah. So that's. But yeah.
Yeah. It all matters is kind of a. It's just
mission
kind of,
statement.
Yeah, it's
a shot across the bow.
I feel like getting into this. There's a lot of. How do I put this? There's a lot of bells ringing, shall we say? There's a lot of bells ringing for the crowd that they're trying to appeal to, with some of the verbiage used throughout this issue with certain things.
I think the statement of saying it all matters, and then actually saying, you know, the first caption page, because you have a page at the start with Sergeant Rock, we'll get to that, but then you have the credits page, the map, and then the second page after that, you've got Diana there, and the first caption page says Hell, formerly Themyscira, the DCU, and then in brackets, yes, the real DCU.
Right.
They're really going hard to say, no, shit hit the fan here.
You know what this reminds me of, and I don't know if you guys read this, but I read it all, and I was very disappointed in it. But it's probably because I was missing big chunks. Was Hickman's Secret Wars?
Oh right.
You know,
I thought I was going to say Convergence.
I haven't even read half a page of Hickman's Secret Wars.
I read the first issue of Secret Wars. I read the first issue.
No idea what was going on. I had no idea, but I still read it all. Because it's an event. I used to just read the Marvel events. Now I don't bother, except for I learned my lesson with Hawks and Pox.
So you're saying you're not going to read Empire?
No.
I'll be honest. Until you said it there, I could have told you what the next Marvel event was called. So
I only know because I just read a headline for it when I was going through the news.
Was it the Hulkling one? Because I saw that too.
I don't know. I saw Empire. I went, oh yeah, that was a thing. I didn't read the rest.
Anyways.
Oh, Mike. Right. So the book starts. I mean, you can talk about Sergeant Raw later. This is kind of a little bookending thing, but we have Wonder Woman. She's actually with a chainsaw breaking down the invisible jet, and we're just kind of slowly introduced to this world that she's in right now. We have obviously a very unhealthy looking Swamp Thing who's much skinnier and
healthier than the last time we saw him in Justice League Dark.
Well, I don't read that book, so why would I know that?
He's been reformed by reality, though, and that's what I wanted to say before my mic went. Is my understanding of Secret Wars was it was all the Marvel universe that had been reshaped by Doctor Doom. And so that's why there's all these different worlds. Here it seems like there's just one world that's been reformed by Batman Who Laughs from the end that we were at. Because in Justice League that led to this point, Perpetua threw Lexicide for Batman Who Laughs, right?
Yes, because Batman Who Laughs promised endless dark multiverse energy because all the bad things happening constantly.
So
forever.
I kind of feel bad for the people that are just jumping into this, not having read all of that.
That makes no sense if you haven't.
Right. But I do like for us that kind of maybe forgotten some beats. This gets into those and kind of explains those more than I think Snyder had been doing through the Justice League run.
There's one of these big exposition pages in the middle is actually more of a recap page for people who have been reading the run.
Honestly, I think that's for anyone who's jumped into this who didn't read. Maybe they read Metal but didn't read Justice League, and they've come back for the Metal sequel.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, here's the cliff notes of the bare minimum you need to know, and for us, it functions as a recap.
Yeah. So we're introduced to this world as Batman ruled world. There's villains and various characters in cells, including the Joker, who's rocking some pretty long hair. and we get all these various Batmen from various worlds that are here, including the Bat T-Rex, because of course,
who is he is the robot T-Rex from the Batcave that world was going down. Bruce downloaded his consciousness into.
Of course he did.
Yeah,
and I want to hate it, but I can't.
The other Batman there, the red one is Terry.
Terry from a dark, because he's called the Beyonder.
Yeah, and the other one is that Alfred?
I don't know, but it's Batmage is what they were calling that one.
It kind of looks like Alfred.
Mm-hmm.
He's old dude for sure. He's old scrawny dude. There's a bunch of jokes here about the T-Rex. Nobody like to throw batarangs with the tiny arms, and he's working on it. Vaguely amusing stuff, and basically, so what's funny about this is that I still feel like the Batman Who Laughs text, his narration boxes.
The actual font.
I love it's the font or the colors, but something about it just looks lower resolution than everything else.
Oh no, I actually agree with that. It's not because you can zoom right in on it and it's fine. It's just
the scratchiness that's meant to make it seem unhinged.
It makes it harder to read. I feel uncomfortable reading it.
And I think that's the point, though, right?
Yeah, but not uncomfortable in a fun. Oh, I'm getting a vibe from this. But uncomfortable in it. No, I'm straining my eyes looking at this. I don't like.
I don't know if it's maybe it's the scratchiness. Maybe it's the red on the black. I don't know, but I agree. It is a little bit awkward to read.
I feel like I need every time I read his text, I feel like I need an eye test.
Maybe you need better glasses, Pete, because I have really bad vision, and I don't struggle that bad.
Well, I'm gonna side with Pete here. I have perfect vision, and my eyes don't like this text.
Yeah,
I don't know. You guys are reading it on a bigger screen than I am, so I don't know what's going on. Then I don't have any issue. Yeah. I probably read maybe it's because I read way more of it because I read the Batman Who Laughs. And
you just
betrayed.
Hey, I read like 4 issues of that.
Right, I know, but I still read more than you.
Yeah, I
struggle that. But before you get to that page, they're bringing in a hooded figure, which led to the first mystery that I start racking my brain on who this could be. So I will give Snyder credit that even though I've read everything up to this point that he's done, it still had some twists and turns.
Yeah, Diana's like you, so she realizes who it is, but she doesn't say, of course. So we just sort of go ahead. So we get introduced to the outside world, which has got flying Joker dragons going around and all the evil Robins going around going crow.
And then what seems like the Batman Who Laughs Justice League, they all have like almost, I'm trying to think of the right word, like patrons, I guess, to these other Batmen that are terrifying. So you have the Harley one, with her man bat-esque creepy crawling bats.
Bat-Thulu.
Bat-Thulu with Aquaman and the Batmage. Then you have Diana with Swamp Thing. A Mr. Miracle with what looks like Batman Orion kind of hybrid.
Batman with a codpiece, essentially.
Well, yeah, but isn't that meant to be like the harness that Orion uses? Right? That's how I read it.
I could buy that, and that would make sense with Mr. Miracle.
Well, they show us. We don't really see Superman in this issue, but they do show us because they're giving Batman Who Laughs.
Programming him with the anti-life.
They're giving Batman Who Laughs a report, and they're showing him a hologram of him in Apocalypse, or New Apocalypse. I think they may have even specifically called it. But it's during this Batman starts talking to Diana telepathically, and it's something to do with Jean. The link.
He's reverse engineered the telepathic link because Batman. Just go with it.
Hated it.
Yes. I didn't really think about it too hard, but hearing you two talk about it, like I'm actually more annoyed at it because Connor just went, "Oh, just go with it." And no,
but that's the impression it gives you.
Well,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I like it. Just that's what it is. It's just go with it. That's kind of how it's kind of brought up in the issue.
At first, I accepted it because I was like, well, that link was in Justice League. Like that's how they communicated. It was well established. But then to have Bruce go, "Oh, I reverse engineered it." Well, no, you're not a telepath, bro. Like,
because the first thing is Diana's like, "How?" It's like, when John set up the psychic link, I built my own version of the signal just in case. And it's like, I'm not sure that's how telepathy works, Bruce, but sure.
But I was like, you know what? I'm enjoying the setting. I will move on. I did.
So they have kind of an inner debate about what to do. There's a bat rocket at one point that goes for the Batman Who Laughs, and the evil Robins just jump in and take the blast for him, as you do. And Batman just stands there. He's just waiting, and Batman Who Laughs wants just is like, hey Bruce, you finally showed up. Blah 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 blah. And he sends his Batman army after him,
which has got some great. We got a Scarecrow, a Clayface, Etrigan. What else have we got in there?
You have a Deathstroke,
Plastic Man,
Plastic Man.
I think.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of characters, and then ultimately Bruce whips out a Black Lantern ring and says, "Rise," to raise an army of the dead to fight them.
Yeah. So in that exposition page, you had the Batman Who Laughs explaining that as a kid, his dad would take him to this field to practice baseball, and he'd ask why. He said, "These are the bodies buried of some of the revolutionaries of Gotham that got taken out during the Revolutionary War. They called themselves the Dead Bats." So I was getting some Gangs of New York vibes. Was that?
It was the Dead Beats, and then they co-opted it later.
Right, because the dead beats of a drum and whatnot. And so I was like, well, I wonder how this is going to pay off. And then, because it was very Gangs of New York feeling, right? And then here he comes up with the Black Lantern ring to rise, which then I was also like, well, this must be Black Lantern's ring, because I know from that crisis from Blackest Night that the rings had to revive the heroes, right?
Yeah.
That's how they came up. So anyways, that was just a little
and then
thing.
One of the people who comes up is our old buddy Jonah Hex.
Yep. And so they fight the Batman, the Batman Who Laughs, provides a cover for Bruce to get away on his bone motorcycle.
So metal.
Batman and Wonder Woman kind of have a debate, again telepathically about, Batman's basically at the point now where he's like, we just have to try and save whoever's left. We have to try and build something from what we have now. And Wonder Woman still clinging on to the hope that they can fix everything. They can put everything back the way it was, and fix the universe. And that's when we cut to Osix, if I'm saying that right. A living planet of bone where Lobo is digging up something at the behest of someone else. All very mysterious. It doesn't show us what it is. It just kind of,
It looks like it's wooden. It looks like a barrel, maybe, or a chest.
Or a crate, right. Something that's, presumably whatever it actually is inside the...
Yeah, but just in terms of the size of it, it's giving us some sense of scale.
Yeah. So, and then we get to... Because, up until now, I've enjoyed some of the humor with the dinosaur and some of the beats and whatnot. For me, everything that makes this issue is basically from this point on.
I agree, and what I think is really notable is there was a point where I got to that that last page with Lobo, and then the next page is just one of those interlude pages, power chords. It says, I was like, that could have been the end of the issue. That tease, that amount of pages could have been the end of an issue.
If that was the end of the issue, I'd have come in here and said, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah,
I would have been very lukewarm on it.
This is what makes it worthy of the title of the Anti-Crisis. That explains. We're going to explain that, but right here, the introduction of this character is, to me, what turns it into a modern Crisis that sets it up to that next level.
And I think one of the reasons why it's only so up until this point, or that's maybe a bit unfair, but just if that's all it was,
kind of,
it seems like a blockbuster up to this point, right?
Well, no. What I was trying to say is, if this is all the book was up until this point, and then it ended here, part of the reason why it doesn't really start to feel exciting until after this is because how many times do we do this in comics where all the heroes end up in some alternate version of the world? They do it all the goddamn time. Marvel do it all the goddamn time. It's such it's a trope in comic books that is overused to the nth degree. It really is. Where this gets interesting is because the characters being themselves and the characters actually try to fight for the things that matter and for the world that we know and remember is what's interesting. So Diana, because that prisoner that came in earlier that we didn't get to see, didn't go into a cell, went into the pit, the Tartarus pit.
Into Tartarus, right.
Right. So Diana goes in, even though she's not supposed to, and she's into this dark void, and we find out that the hooded figure was Wally West, and he's got his blue outfit on. but he's Wally West. And first of all, just a touching moment here where she hugs him and says, old friend, we're going to make this right. Even that was just like, oh man, you're pulling at my heartstrings here. Like, Snyder, don't tease something you're not going to deliver on, you prick. Right? I tell you right now, if you're not going to fix this, you dare tease it.
I've got more faith in Snyder delivering in this story than I did in the overall Generations shot with everyone.
Right. I mean, he had to already have been here, though, like, in this story, because this first issue would have been written before things were pushed, or before Generations were pulled.
Yeah.
It almost seems to me like what we thought was being wedged into Metal, it seems like Generations was being wedged in to DC, right? Like, Snyder had his plan, and sure, things have changed, but then it seemed like they were going to wedge in whatever Generations is in addition to that. So I feel like this is just reset it.
I don't know, because I feel like what was more likely happening is that Snyder's got his story that he wants to tell, and whatever it happens to fix in the DCU, like post it, it's not anything he's even concerned about doing necessarily. He's not necessarily involved in deciding what that is. It's just his story happens to lend itself to, at the end, they're going to fix the multiverse, and whatever they want to do in terms of continuity afterwards, what's in place, what isn't, they can just have happen. Right. It's a good excuse for it.
And that's what I'm saying. We're Generations wedged into that, going forward. But just I just look at the timeline of he was supposed to write that Wonder Woman story, right? Or he did write that Wonder Woman story that was in 750 that reintroduces the JSA.
Mm-hmm.
And that was supposed to be the continuity going forward for whatever was coming next.
Yeah, I mean, we know from previews and stuff that the JSA are in the next issue of Metal. Right. So we are dealing with that stuff in this book.
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily say Generations was feeling wedged in more, because if anything, even if this was like still exactly as it was before, and I feel like this first issue has to be just given when it had to have been written and when things changed, is that it's more just that Generations was going to be a good way of explaining what the continuity is that is created at the end of Metal.
I think for me it feels like it's more streamlined now. Like, if this is the story, it makes Generations feel like it might have been a little bit redundant and just extra issues for the sake of it. Whereas now I've got it in the form of a story that
presumably
relevant, perhaps.
Presumably it was going to set up whatever 5G was going to be as well, though, so it'd have had its own goal on top of explaining continuity.
But that in its own right feels a little bit messy doing that at the same time as a crisis/anti-crisis.
Right. Well, just remember we were supposed to get that book, the Forgotten History of the DCU.
Oh yeah, that was ages ago.
Right, and that was gonna be by John Ridley. Well, John Ridley's writing part of that Joker War one shot. Because now I'm just thinking of this because we were talking about that, right?
Yeah, because we kind of heard that book was kind of dead again, but the relationship clearly isn't dead between him and DC. Even if it's a significantly smaller project, he's got, I don't know, 5-10 pages in a one shot.
Right. So I'm just saying, because Connor's saying this feels more streamlined. Now all these pieces are starting to fall in to me now, right? Where, like you just said, the relationship's not dead, just that book and whatever it was. So, which is always a good sign, right? Like, so, but anyways, this is where it starts to get to the crisis-y.
Yeah, because
as a continuity wonk, I freaking love.
We have this emotional beat between them, and given that Wonder Woman and Wally aren't exactly two characters, I mean, when I think of Wally having an emotional beat with other DC characters, even if you just
Diana,
if you exclude the close family, which is Flash, by that I mean Barry and Linda and the characters like, I think of him being with Dick. I think of him being maybe with Kale or something. Characters who were around his tenure, right? I don't think of him having his beats with Diana, so it was kind of a nice sweet mix. But then we get the double page kind of like Scott Steiner trying to work Perpetua into every crisis that's ever happened.
And I don't hate it. Like
it's not terrible. It's not bad.
It seems to work in the fact that he set up Perpetua as this. She tried to create her multiverse, and it got corrupted, and because of that corruption, it's led to all these crises because it's
Well,
trying to fix
no.
itself.
No. She intentionally made the multiverse this way.
Yeah, there
So-
are
Right.
lots of beings like Perpetua who created their own multiverses.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and let me try and summarize this, and then we can, if I get something wrong or whatever, we
Yeah.
could pick it apart after. But the way I understood it is that there's lots of beings, whatever type of being Perpetua is. I don't even think God's the right term, but like whatever
No,
type of
'cause it's
being
beyond that.
Perpetua is, they all make multiverses, and as Wally explains it, because he's been traveling around the multiverse,
Mhm.
multiverses even, is that there's basically two poles. If you think of like the North and South Pole, right? There's two poles of energy, and one is all the positive things. It's the emotional spectrum, the speed force, hope, blah blah blah, all that stuff. The other side
Right.
is doom and injustice and crisis energy, because a crisis is an energy now.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an equivalent of matter and antimatter,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right.
It is.
So
and entropy and that state that, stuff will go into chaos
right. So
over time.
So what's basically this is that Perpetua didn't make her multiverse out of the because he calls it the connective. That's the good energy. The connective
Mhm.
is the good energy. She didn't make it out of that. She made her multiverse out of the crisis energy, and the other beings of her kind basically imprisoned her in the source wall, hoping, partly as a punishment, but mostly hoping that she would see her multiverse grow and she would gain empathy and become a
Mhm.
better being because of it. That did not happen. She was just angry and she was bitter and she held a grudge, and essentially all these crises that have happened over time is basically because of the way the multiverse was created. It all stems
Right.
from how she started it.
And it mentions that she would, whisper it out into the multiverse, and certain beings would kind of hear that and start crises because of what they heard. Maybe not consciously, but
Yeah,
more
so
just...
on this page you see the Anti-Monitor, you see Superboy Prime, you see all the
So-
Prime suspects.
Is it just me or does the Anti-Monitor have bat ears? Is that just the perspective?
It's just a perspective.
I think it's just
Okay.
perspective.
Yeah.
Because I saw that and it made me chuckle.
So the idea is that now that she's in control and she's got the Batman Who Laughs to basically, because they point this out, and I like this idea that the reason why they've not just killed the Justice League is that there has to be beings that remember all these crises, so that the dark multiverse versions of these crises keep happening, because that energy is what's been used to fulfill everything.
Right. It's the dark multiverses or the dark universes that are being born out of all their bad thoughts and whatnot. Their memory is what's powering
Yeah.
Batman
And then,
laughs.
and this is where it ties it into Rebirth as a whole,
Mhm.
and talks about how Manhattan is essentially made of connective energy. That's what all his power is.
And at the end of Doomsday Clock, so it tries to tie in Doomsday Clock completely here, which is at the end of Doomsday Clock, he tried to fix it, and he did his best, but it didn't have the intended effect. And it leaves us in this place. So what's funny here is I even hate that Wally's got a Manhattan symbol on him. I'm like, okay, now that's what we're doing with Wally now. Okay, we're making him this multiverse being.
Yeah, because he's full of the connective energy now.
Yes.
So, which is cool. So, real quick, who's the character behind Darkseid? He looks so familiar, and I can't put my finger on it.
It's very vampire-y, isn't he?
He looks like an
Yeah.
Uber vamp from the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Because I was like, that's not what Barbados looked like. And then you see
No.
Barbados with the hood on, right down at the bottom. So I'm like,
Yeah, that's metal. The first metal there.
Yeah,
at the bottom.
whoever's behind Darkseid, that has to be Final Crisis. So he was in Final Crisis.
okay, that's why he's the Anti-Monitor from the Crisis, the one that got corrupted and became an energy vampire
Okay.
and was draining the worlds. Yeah, okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Pete.
There you go. So no. Yeah, so Diana wants to fix this. Batman Who Laughs shows up, of course, and is like, no, I'm listening to you.
There was a really meta line with Batman Who Laughs. I don't know if it was here early on about, you think you're sick of me.
It was earlier on,
that
that line.
are.
Yeah, in fact, he's the one who drops the phrase anti-crisis. If I have a problem with the dialogue here, it's the Batman Who Laughs pointing out that if you call the other crisis a direct crisis, you have AC/DC. I'm like, okay, you know what? Don't. That's something for the writers to tell us on Twitter as a joke, and it can be funny. Having the characters say that in the book, I thought was a bit stupid. But
I
think
just
it's
heard.
funny coming from this particular deranged character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if like I don't know, Hal said this, it'd be okay. It seems like Hal's character to say a dumb metal joke, right?
All I know is when he heard that, I immediately heard the first riffs of Thunderstruck. So that's just me, though.
I'm more of a Highway to Hell man, but that's fine.
I mean, yeah, but
So yeah, and poor Swamp Thing's getting beat up by Bat T-Rex,
Batman.
Bat Rex. There you go, come Bat Rex.
How'd you like them arms, pitch?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I'll give you that. And then Batman Who Laughs basically monologuing and about how Wonder Woman can't do this, and or even try to predict what she would do, or what Bruce would do. And he's like, "Oh, you'd already have a weapon. You already, you've already got a shield to behind, so you'd make a weapon. You'd make a sword." And she's like, "Nah, not a sword." And then you see her revving something invisible, right? Because it's just a string. You see the pull cord.
And we know it was made from the invisible jet.
So the full page spread that comes next is Batman Who Laughs being impaled with an invisible chainsaw. So you can see Wonder Woman holding where the the handle and that would be, but you just see the light where it's going through the Batman Who Laughs. And I will say this is kind of ballsy. I kind of like this. Is that Snyder, for some of his faults and his exposition and other things, I think he clearly understood that there was a very large portion of the audience who is sick to death of the Batman Who Laughs because he's been overexposed since Metal.
Yeah, I think that was clear in the earlier dialogue that I mentioned. It was like, yeah, but you're still here for it. But he was aware of the problem.
But that felt more hollow because it was like, okay, you're acknowledging it, but I'm still having to read the asshole. Like, you're still here. Like, you can acknowledge it all you want.
For me, that was an acknowledgement that some people feel like that, but maybe the majority, maybe we're in the minority of being kind of sick of it. Maybe the majority is like, well, it still sells, so clearly you care. Yeah,
but that comes across as arrogant to me, so it makes it unlikable. It makes me annoyed at that meta line, if you want to put it like that. This here at the end was a statement. It was a statement of two things. It was one, no, the Batman Who Laughs is done. I created him. I'm finishing him. He's gone. And two, it means, oh, we're not just going to be dealing with this asshole for the next 6 issues. Good. Yep. Fantastic news. And on top of that, it made for a great page. So, the weapon reveal was great. Exciting.
Yeah, so I read this on Tuesday, and it did make a thing, but for whatever reason, I thought she made the chainsaw out of the lasso of truth. Is that something that was on that page?
No, I don't think so.
I know why you're thinking that. I think you're thinking that because when it was originally announced that she was going to have a chainsaw, way back when we first heard about Metal, Snyder called it the Chainsaw of Truth.
It says that on the very next page.
It says on the very next page.
Yeah,
but
that's
I was like, well,
in your head for so long that that's probably why you were thinking.
Because then I just went and looked over it, and I was like, it's not on this page. Because that's a pretty great thing that she's using the truth to cut down Batman Who Laughs. Like, I do like that concept. So, but yeah, no, that part I actually was like, oh man, okay, this is not at all what I thought it was, and good.
I mean, they're making this a Wonder Woman centric story, and they make it again. There's a very meta line. There's almost too many meta lines in this, where she's like, "This is not a Batman story. This is my story." Like, maybe a bit too on the nose, but obviously I appreciate it though. I appreciate the fact that that's what it is, and the fact that it might be like a Wonder Woman and maybe secondary Wally West, like.
Yeah, I mean, Snyder always told us it was a Wonder Woman story first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a DC Universe event, but she was always going to be the linchpin character. But obviously, he couldn't tell us about Wally West.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So, I mean, don't know. He might be not like the second player. He might still just be, a supporting cast member, and that's fine. But, like...
Well, he's there.
Yeah, it feels important.
I do feel like this has become a escort mission, and now she's just got to keep Wally alive. Because he's the energy source they're going to need to undo all this. You know what I mean?
So, no, honestly, super excited. When you see her revving the chainsaw, you get excited for the next page. I mean, dare I say, it feels metal. So,
Yep.
I cannot complain.
I think
the book won me over.
No matter your opinion by the end of this book, good or bad, whoever you are, Peace Just City like that's great. But if you didn't, there would be no denying that this book lives up to the promise of being metal, for good or for bad.
I mean, no, Snyder's so hit and miss with me. And Metal 1 I like quite a bit, but I did have problems with it, especially in the middle. It kind of sagged in exposition and all that other stuff. You can go back and listen to everything I said. But so I got into this. I was somewhat excited, but there was trepidation. And then I feel like the first half was fine, but not necessarily blew me away. And then the second half, the conversation with Wally, the multiverse stuff, the anti-crisis stuff, the chainsaw itself, all that stuff won me over.
Got a couple of pages to go.
There's another couple pages to go. We have the other Batman and some of the Robins.
It's the mage one comes out, right?
They've got a button, which is like the Watchmen button, but it's it's a sad face.
Frowny face.
It's not a smiley face, it's a sad face. And they press this button and it opens a door, revealing some mysterious... I mean, they say final Bruce Wayne in the speech bubble, but the figure has a Dr. Manhattan symbol on his head.
And he's blue as well, not just a symbol. He has blue skin. So I don't think that's just a light. I know there's a blue light behind him, but you can see his arm at the front that looks blue. Maybe that's a coloring mistake. It's possible. But he certainly seems blue.
He does look. It looks like he has hair though, which is not Manhattan-esque.
No, it's true.
Looks
I'm
like
fascinated.
Hair. Yeah. So is this a Bruce Wayne that's also Manhattan from another universe? Like what's
Right. Low-key hate that.
Wally West versus Bruce Wayne.
Batman as Dr. Manhattan. No, Matt's going to love this.
That is the final culmination of the Bat God.
Yeah, it's literally the Bat God, and I hate the Bat God.
If the Bat God is the enemy, yeah, maybe you end up.
I just became the kombucha girl meme.
Yeah.
Also, I missed this on the first read through, because I read this as I was waiting on the side of my the road because my truck died. And I was like, well, I might as well read metal right now.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I missed that the Batmage called the Robins Groblins, which is a smash together of goblins and robins.
Yeah.
I kind of love it.
Yeah, and then obviously the wraparound is Sergeant Rock at the start of the book is just like going into battle and he's talking about eating hamburgers or something. I don't know, he's doing hoorah speeches.
I actually love that first page because you have Sergeant Rock monologuing and you're like, okay, it's Sergeant Rock, and then he pulls out a very futuristic looking gun and you're like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, it looks not dissimilar to the guns from Aliens, the Colonial Marines use. It looks similar to that in terms of aesthetic. But Batman shows up here and basically says, like, like the fight's coming, like we have to go now. And it seems that Batman is going around collecting people, which, by the way, Sergeant Rock's missing half of his body.
Just his body.
Yeah.
He's bones from the chest down.
Yeah. But Batman says, one last fight, everyone together being bolded. So I don't know if this is later in the timeline, and this is Batman who's come around to, like, to Wonder Woman's, like, let's actually do it, let's actually fight and bring everything back. I get the impression this is later in the timeline, because the Batman who's in the main portion of the book feels a bit more jaded and hopeless than this. I don't know, this feels more hopeful and like, yeah, we can get everyone together and make one last stand kind of thing.
Yeah. I know Snyder's talked about how, like, the first Metal, like they think, oh, we kind of gave some characters not new longevity, but more, we put a spotlight on some smaller characters that maybe people weren't as familiar with. And he wants to do that this time around again. So, he mentioned Sergeant Rock and Jonah Hex. He wants them to, have enough of a part in this that people are like, oh, I could go for a new book from them because it's been a while.
Yeah, I also am reading that as a bit meta too, because those are two non-superheroes that had pretty good runs, right?
Yeah. I think he also
almost like they're
Wally West in that as well, in the sense that it's been a while since we've had a proper Wally West book that people really wanted to read.
Yes, but my point was, before you brought up Wally West, though, is that these are ones that are kind of outside of crises, right? Like Sergeant Rock's never really been a main through that, or Jonah Hex. It's always our superheroes, throughout the time. So you have these more pulpy style heroes showing up here in the first one, and I feel that's not by accident. It's like a meta take too in comics, like you guys were saying about maybe we'll get a Sergeant Rock book coming out of this, or even more Jonah Hex.
Yeah, and it might not necessarily be a spin-off book. It might not be like, this version of Sergeant Rock, but more just okay,
mean,
Sergeant Rock's in this, and it's putting back in people's minds that maybe if they launch one now, people will be more open to reading it.
Even if it was a quarterly Black Label book, like weird Western tales, or all-star Western type, or even war stories with them, I think that would be cool. That'd be
Yeah, I could
nice.
see like a quarterly $10 anthology sort of thing with you do Sergeant Rock, All Star Western, Black Hawks.
Yeah, stuff like that. I think it would be cool, really, really cool.
Because you mentioned, in terms of the characters from the first one, like the Hawks, for example, where there'd not been any Hawk content for a while, and now we've got an ongoing Hawk book that's been going for 2 years.
And it's low key my favorite thing DC's putting out.
It's so good. It's all about more of that.
Well, and also he did put Kendra Saunders back up on the forefront, and through that we now have that Hawkman book where they're not tied together like they were. We'll talk about it later today, but we get Hawk, we got Carter and Shayera back as part of that, and that all came through Metal.
That was, he kind of said that was part of his intention with some of the other side characters that he's throwing in here. Is maybe not all of them, but maybe some of them will get that feeling of, oh, well, we could try another book with them now, and maybe it'll be a bit more popular because they've just appeared in a big event.
And it's always those lower tier characters why I love DC. I love the Booster Golds and the Ted Cords so anytime you can give them some prominence in a story like this, I like that. So hopefully we can get some of that going forward with some of these smaller characters. Even Lobo, the character I'm not that big on, but he's fun when he's used in spots like this. So like, what's he up to on that Bone Planet?
Yeah, who's talking to him?
Right. And I like that. Even though Lobo's kind of a bigger character, right? He's had his own solo book for on and off.
Not recently, though. I mean, not in the last few years.
And also, if you're gonna have a book of Metal, where is Lobo in that? Like, you got to feature him. He's a biker.
He definitely doesn't feel out of place.
No. So yeah.
Yeah. That's the first issue of Death Metal. Honestly, no, I'm pleasantly surprised. I feel like once it got to the meat of what it was doing, which was the Wily West stuff, the Anti-Crisis multiverse, and then the actual moment the chainsaw, all that stuff I thought was really good. And it kind of like, and obviously even Batman with the Black Lantern ring was a pretty cool moment. I think I was definitely feeling early on, okay, we're doing an alternate world, all the heroes are here. Like, how many times have we seen this in comic books, because they do it all the time? But once it actually started getting to the reasons why I should care about what's going on, the reasons why I should care about why they're doing what they're doing, and really root for them in the fight. Once it got to that point, I was into it. Just
worth noting on that, this is the alternate world. We've seen it before, which, yes, we have. I kind of care a little bit more inherently, or don't mind it as much inherently this time, because, okay, if this is the one that's going to be the crisis that's going to be resetting things on a reasonable scale, it doesn't feel as cheap as just doing it for a 6-issue arc. It feels like it'll have consequences.
Oh, sure. But I mean, it doesn't really matter like what the reasons are. The point is that it's just a trope that we've seen done a million times.
Oh, it is. I mean, more like, this is more akin to like Flashpoint, right? As opposed to random story in Justice League. Yeah.
Okay, they do it too often, though. Because there's definite beats to it where you're sort of like discovering, okay, what's the world like, and like, which character's going to show up in which role, because they've always spread out doing different things.
I soured you on this recently.
What?
It's Emperor Joker.
Oh yeah, Emperor Joker didn't help, but there's definitely, because even something like I've never actually read X-Men Apocalypse, right? But I was reading whatever X-Men book was coming out.
Age of Apocalypse.
Or Age of Apocalypse, yeah. Whatever book, when we were reading some X-Men stuff, I think it was like a 16-issue arc in the main X-Men title. It went weekly for a while. It was Age of X-Man or something like that. But it was doing like Apocalypse adjacent stuff where we were getting into Apocalypse again.
That was what we were doing previously.
Yeah.
Trying that
elsewhere with X-Man. And everything that I didn't like either. It's like, they all have, like, both companies have these big examples of these, just like, and I'm like, just take good stories. Not everything has to be alternate versions of everything.
And that's why I can get that itch scratch with something like the Booster Gold book, where you get to go to different time periods and the what's ifs. And then on top of that, at Marvel, you had Exiles. We had that group, and it was built in. if they failed, they ceased to exist or whatever. So there was that. And I always felt that was fun because you got that in small doses. Like the DCU didn't revolve around that Booster Gold book.
Yeah, but I want to make it clear though, because I feel like I've had to justify what I was saying about that to explain it, and explaining it's making me sound really negative. When the point I'm trying to make is that I didn't really care once I actually got to the meat of it. Once I actually got to why I care, I was into it.
Yeah.
I'm really excited now for the rest of the season, especially September when we get, like almost like weekly. Even though it's not the main book, we'll have like weekly stories from this world. I'm kind of excited for that. I'm
dreading about issue 4-ish. Because that's usually when the exposition dump issue happens from Snyder, so I'm expecting to hate one of them in the middle.
It'll either be right before or right after the break.
Yeah, so not looking forward to that specific one, but otherwise, yes, it's looking hopeful. Matt, what are you giving Death Metal issue 1?
I'm gonna give this a solid 8.
Connor?
8.5 from me.
I would get 8.5 as well. That somehow I am rating it higher than Matt. I did not see that coming, but
the ratings are BS. I hate them.
Oh god.
I wonder if I'd gone first and said 8.5, do you reckon Matt would have followed and just gone 8.5 or even 9 instead of going in at 8?
No, because I liked it a lot, but now it makes it seem like I liked it less.
This is why I like to make Matt go first, is because he has to, like, he can't be influenced by our scores. He has to just go.
And this is why everything's a 7 and above most of the time.
But thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.